Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to this edition of Creating the Future with me, Dr. Brent Simpson, where we dive into stories and truths and deep questions that help us shape our faith, our families, and our future. And we have been throughout the summer in a great, fun series where we are learning all about our Rise pastors. These people that you see on stage or sometimes see in passing or what have you, but you oftentimes don't know their stories. And so we are diving into those. And today we have with us our connection pastor, Pastor Jonny Turpin. Welcome back, Pastor Jonny.
Hey, this is my third time. I'm excited.
Yeah, I know. You've been on the podcast multiple times. I think you did the Strawberry Festival one with me, right?
Yes, that was awesome.
That was a hit. Like, people seem to like that one. So welcome to the show today. We're really excited to learn a little bit about you. So let's start out with a fun question. Favorite TV show of all time?
Now, I've had to put a lot of thought into this, but it's going to have to be The Office. It is something that is just...
Are you allowed to say that as a pastor?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if not, I don't know, unsubscribe.
We're in trouble because I watched way too much Office.
Unsubscribe or something. But literally, I don't know, it can be on in the background. You can rewatch moments to laugh. It's something you can just put on and zone out a little bit. So The Office for sure.
Yeah, okay. So I'm throwing on my cowboy hat. I haven't worn these in the other podcasts as I recall, but I'm throwing it on for you because you are a country boy. So let's go there. Tell me about your childhood. What were you like growing up as a little boy? What was that like?
Yeah, growing up, born in Bartow, Florida, because Mulberry doesn't have a hospital. Right. So you either pick Lakeland or Bartow. I ended up in Bartow. Parents were pastors of a church called Mulberry First Assembly there. They pastored, I want to say total there, 18 years. My childhood was literally simple. You're outside all the time, riding bikes, playing, hanging out with your family. We're in church. We were a church family there. Any day that ended in Y, we're probably at the church. And from my earliest, I could send you the video or a picture. I literally snakeskin cowboy boots, hat. My mom told me that she used to have to pull those off of me, and I'd fight her to go to sleep. And so I always just want to be outside, play with my friends, and I like sports, but really just more of the people element and family.
Well, you're definitely a people person.
Yeah.
So you were the cowboy, the country boy that had a drug problem because you were drugged to church every time the doors were open, right?
May have led to some of my problems later.
Right. Well, let's go there. So, all right, teenage Pastor Jonny.
Yes.
If we met you as a teenager, what were you like? Because I think at this point now you're no longer in Mulberry.
Yes. So my parents, when I was going into the fourth grade, they took a church in Englewood, Florida. So it's kind of funny. We were all blown away because they moved, like the church finally established, growing, mortgage paid off. Then we go to a church in Englewood, same thing. Massive debt, 20 people. So moving there was just very much of a culture shock. I remember like wearing my cowboy boots, and it's a beach town, and people are like, what is this guy doing?
They're flip-flops, not boots.
Exactly. It took me a little while to make friends. The first friend I made in Englewood, Florida, named Andrew Gindy, we are still friends today, my best friend. And so we're still friends today. He was at my wedding. But it took me a while to find who I was. I had resentment towards my parents. So in that middle school era, I was still nice, but I was totally just a punk trying to figure out, do I fit in the world or the church? So I rebelled heavy. Like, my parents were really struggling with me, and first time drank, smoked, did all those things, exposed to pornography, was in middle school. So I was really wrestling with a lot of those things. Did I want to serve God? Did I not? And so that was a lot of my middle school, high school. I go to youth camp going into freshman year. God wrecks my life at church camp. And so then I'm like, I'm in for this. So in high school, I would say I was pretty known as like the church kid, bring people to school, not like the over... Like I could relate with anyone. So that was, I'd bring people to school and stuff like that.
That's awesome. And I've seen you, so you went from cowboy to some degree, country, to now you're doing the water sports. Because I've seen you behind our boat, on the tubes and the wakeboard, whatever it's called, all that. You're pretty good.
Well, there was nothing to do in Englewood. You had no mall, you had nothing, so we'd all go to Ski Alley. That's it. You fish, you were out behind the boat to have fun.
All right, so you backslid, then you're in church. Like, tell me about your salvation experience. What was that like for you?
Well, I would say it's kind of like hard to codify, like this is the day. I would say I know the day, February 19th of 2017 was like, that's what I hold to.
That's the one we're talking about.
Like I talked about, just having those early struggles and wrestles with shame. It was also my own fault of feeling sometimes awkward to be open in church because my parents are the pastors and they wouldn't have held it against me, to be honest with you. So I always felt this dichotomy of I don't fit in the world and I don't fit in at church. I felt both worlds. So, and then dealing with private sin and stuff like that, and not anything crazy. But once I turned 18, it was kind of like I didn't know if I had faith because my parents had faith or because I had faith. And I kind of hate being held to the standard of the pastor's kid all the time. And so I just slowly integrated into the party scene a little bit more. It wasn't, sin is always gradual. So, a lot of times I was the DD. I remember I'd always be the DD for my friends. I'd hang out in those environments, and then slowly drink a little bit more, smoke a little bit more, trying to chase girls a little bit more. I didn't catch too many, but, all of that lifestyle. And, but it did progress over time. And so then with the insecurities and just questioning who I was, then I would feel that more with drinking and different things. And I wasn't some wild dude. I was still just a sinner that needed Jesus. And so it all kind of came to a head in my life. A weekend in February, I met this girl at a bar in Lakeland, Florida. She invited me to her sorority's formal, which my buddy Andrew, I just mentioned from the 4th grade, we were there, and he's like, hey, I'm going to this, they're going to this formal. So I ended up going. And that weekend, God was already kind of dealing with my heart in the way that I was living. I wasn't at peace. I wasn't happy. I didn't like who I was, but I didn't want to admit that. And I didn't know if I really wanted to change yet.
Yeah.
And so that weekend I worked. I got off. I went to a party Friday night, woke up super early, rode with a friend up to Lakeland. And then it was, party for the sorority formal. And I didn't sleep much that weekend. We took Adderall. And I just remember the sun was coming up after this weekend of a lot of drinking and all this. I just felt so empty. And I'm in this house, and I begin to cry in that moment of like, how did my life get here? I don't like who I am. I don't like the decisions I'm making. And so my buddy Andrew was going back to Englewood, and I was riding with him. So I'm like, bro, please drop me off at my parents' church. So that day he dropped me off at my parents' church. And a little side note, my parents' church is like here, there's a field, and there was the parsonage. At that time, Pastor Kieran, who's my brother-in-law, was living in the parsonage. My clothes all smelled like weed and a bar, right? So I only had like 3 shirts. So I run into his house, I had a key right there, give it the Febreze bath, put it on, go to church. As soon as I get there, worship just ended and the preaching begins. And I just knew that day, I'm like, God, I just feel you tugging on my heart. One of my friends was preaching, who was reaching out to me that whole time, Gus Cabrera. And so that day I came up to the altar. Here's my prayer. God, I am done making promises to you, because anytime I promise you anything, I fail you. But anything you help me to do, I'll do. So that was February 19th of 2017. I knew it was real because on the 20th, one of my buddies, we would smoke and go to class sometimes. I wasn't like a major stoner, but sometimes we would. And he calls me to come over, and I didn't have the heart or courage to tell him I was a Christian. I'm just like, I can't come. And that was like the first fruit of like something's changed in my life. And that's where it all began.
That's so good. You just mentioned this, but you're a little bit unique because your family is all here and they're all in ministry. So just give us a real quick, who are the Turpins that like people may not make the connection to?
Let's get like a graph out.
Right.
So my parents, Dan and Nancy Turpin, like I mentioned, they were pastors. I want to say total 46 years in this area. And then obviously my sister is Erica.
And they retired and they moved here.
They're here now.
Yeah, and so if you see sometimes some of the plays and things like that, you'll see Nancy, we'll say Pastor Nancy, because she's retired. She came here. She helps with different things going on. Both of your parents do, but she's more seen maybe because of that. She also preaches every once in a while.
Yeah. So they're involved here. They hang out. A lot of their ministry now is taking care of all their grandkids and supporting us as we're in ministry now. My sister is Erica, who's married to Pastor Kieran. And so Kieran is my brother-in-law, Erica's my sister. They have 5 kids. Honorable mentions, my brother Isaac, he'll come here through True Builders. Then my brother Daniel, he's stationed up in Warner Robins in the military.
So the Turpins are very plugged in here now.
Yes.
And we always kind of laugh because we brought Kieran and then everybody else followed. So
we're all here.
Cool. We love it. All right, so you got saved. What was your call to ministry after that? Like, how did you end up called?
Kind of crazy, because I remember I went on a missions trip with my family. On a missions trip, it was to Abaco, Bahamas. We were running the youth camp for kids there.
Missions trip to the Bahamas.
Nice, right?
Not so bad. Can we
pick
go on
the location
to Hawaii? Or
you did have no AC. You stayed in these rooms, but you were on the beach. But yeah, so we'd put on a youth camp for all of these underprivileged kids. So it was a lot of work. It was fun. I was a kid going. You worked kitchen duty. You did everything for the whole week. You were the rec directors, kitchen, chaperones. I was playing drums for the missions trip, and I remember one night just the Holy Spirit falls in this chapel. The concrete floor, you're right on the beach, windows open, there's no AC there, nothing fancy. And like one by one, the band members all stopped playing just because God was all hitting us. And same thing, so I just start crying. I couldn't play the drums. I go and just kind of kneel down, and I'm praying. I'm a 12-year-old kid, and I remember saying to my mom, I feel like God is calling me to be a youth pastor. And she's like, well, pray about it. I tested. I think if he's telling you that, that's what he'd want you to do. So that was in my back pocket. Like I remember, when I was in high school and would walk for homecoming court or whatever, I'd always say, Jonny Turpin wants to go to Southeastern University and be a youth pastor. So I remember experiencing that. The problem is once I turned 18 and I saw some of the way that how hard my parents worked, how people treated them at times, I'm like, I am not doing ministry. I'll make money. Let's do business or something like that. Mm-hmm. So the call was young, but I didn't step into it until later in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's unique from some of the other stories we've heard from our pastors, because your call to ministry was actually, you backslid after that. And really your salvation, as far as modern salvation experience, came after. That's awesome. All right, so we don't need all the story, but you did start in ministry at your parents' church. You're a youth pastor there. Then everybody starts moving here. You become a youth pastor for us in our South Shore location, and then over here, and then eventually you end up at a connection pastor role now. What has surprised you most? Well, we'll answer this real quick. How long have you been at Arise? How long have you been in
5 years.
So 5 years at Arise. What has surprised you most about being in ministry? Hey, what's up, everybody? I hope you are enjoying today's show, but let me take a quick time out to remind you to like and subscribe. It helps us get this content out to so many more people, as well as do me a favor and leave a comment. I always enjoy reading your comments every single week. Now, let's jump right back into this great conversation.
That I'm in it. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I didn't, it's like, God, one, how could you use me? But secondly, like, I didn't see myself doing this in any way. Like, loved the church, wanted to be involved in the church. But the pastors' kids have a unique experience of where you see all the great, you see all the bad, and then you just see the work that goes into it, and rightfully so. I mean, they're praying, they're preaching, they're preparing. So that's what I'd say. Like it's hard for me. There was no shock value of what I've seen in ministry, because we've been running sound at funerals, go hospital visits with our parents. I've gone and seen, people in the rehab centers with my father, to people getting out of prison, being at our house, to doing block parties, to feeding the poor, to mission trips. So I think you're kind of exposed to it. So it's not like I've had that shock value other than, gosh, I'm doing this. Thank you, Lord,
Yeah. All right. What's one moment in ministry that you'll never forget?
Yeah, this one question was difficult too, because I don't have I just think there's so many. The thing that never gets old to me is seeing someone come in that does not know God or far from God, or like me, who walked in smelling like the bar from the night before, and God radically transformed their life, and you begin to see the fruit. One funny story is I'll never forget one day where my actual tattoo artist, who's done mine, he called me, and a lot of my tattoos we would talk about as I'm getting a tattoo, and I would tell him like the faith meaning behind it or the scripture. And one day he just called me and was like, hey, I want to come to church. And it was so evident. He was drunk. He was slurring his words so much. He's like, so I'll come when I'm sober. And so I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. I'll come get you now. Like I told him how I walked into church. Me and my buddy Kale went and grabbed him, helped him get in the car. He could barely walk, took him to church, gave him black coffee in the lobby for our young adult service, some donuts there. And he walked in, and that night when they gave the call for salvation, he went up, and him and I will still talk today. But I'm like, there's little moments like that from youth students that would give you, dare I say, hell, and they wanted nothing to do with church. You take them to youth camp, and now they're involved and plugged in today. So I don't have like a one story. It's just, to see people's lives change is the most powerful thing ever.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so we've touched on this a little bit, but from your vantage point, how did you end up at Arise?
Because you hired Kieran. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't...
The domino effect,
So my brother-in-law, Pastor Kieran, was my youth pastor. He was there, I want to say, 10 years or something like that, 17 years, I don't know. Well, when Dr. Brent hired Kieran, there was now a vacancy. At that point, I was now in the church for a year, and guess who was Kieran's intern? Me and my cousin Katie, okay? So what did we do? What does that mean? Intern means we stacked the chairs, we communicated, we would get some stage reps, we get to preach here and there. We would help lead with some of the events, and I was just doing that. And so when he left, my parents came to me and said, hey, we want you to be the youth pastor. And I'm like, I'm good on that. And they're like, well, pray about it. So I did pray about it, and I felt God was telling me to do this. So I go back to them like, listen, I don't really know what I'm doing. I know church. I don't know how to be a pastor. I am so scared. So if you'll help me, I'll do it. And so that's where we started. I think it was November of whenever he got hired here. So it had to be 2018.
Yeah. But then how did you end up a youth pastor or here?
Okay. So then 2020 happens. I'm getting married. My wife gets a job in Tampa. We weren't married yet, but I
moved you up here. Yeah.
Yep. So we moved here. I'm just attending Arise. So I was volunteering in youth, playing on the worship team, and just serving wherever I could. And I don't know how you want to say it happened, whether me having conversations with you, or I remember several times I'd invite people to church and you would see that I invited people, and I'd hang out on Main Street and you're like, just keep doing what you're doing. And so that's naturally who we are. We're going to bring people to church and hang out with people. And then so there's actually a connections role that opened up here, and I applied for it. I did not get it, but you said keep sending in your resume. We'll find a place for you. Yeah. So then a little bit later, you offered me a part-time job at South Shore. So I was doing full-time at True Builders and then part-time there. And that was not the healthiest hour work, just because I was newly married. And then there was a full-time role that opened up, and you made me the offer. So that's how I got here and on full-time.
Just for clarity for everybody, how old are you?
I just turned 30 in August.
And how long have you been married?
5 years. I'll hit 6 years in February.
Okay. All right, so what do you love most about serving at Arise?
What I love most about Arise is that, one, the authenticity that we have here. Really, they allow you to be you. And what I'm not saying is the terrible version of you, but I'm talking about, like, they allow me to have my interest in the things that I like. And even if it disagreed with what he liked, they allow me to be that, while also challenging me to grow and be more. So it's the both and, like, how we value growth. That's not just something that we would say on a stage to congregants. It's really in this staff too. I can't tell you how many times I've came in your office and I went to unpack an idea and you're like, oh yeah, but did you read this book about it? Or did you know this back end about it? Or how about, did you know that this psychology thing? And constantly, you're the one that told me you don't really listen to music, you just listen to podcasts. And now I find myself like, I'm either listening to audiobooks or podcasts. I probably drive my wife crazy, because even this morning I want to unpack a podcast with her. So that's what I'd say, is just the amount of growth and the authenticity. And then lastly, the fun that we have. We work hard, but we make hard work look fun. And we're goofballs and we prank each other. You've pranked me. I've got to prank people here. And I just love that element, the team camaraderie, but it has a family feel.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love working with you. You're so much fun. I get to do this all the time. We get to hang out, maybe have coffee or whatever. Yeah. I can't say all the time, but more than most. So if you sat down with somebody in our church, one of our people watching right now, and you just sat down, got to hear them, they got to hear you, they walk away thinking, Pastor Jonny is such and such, or this is who he is. Yeah. What do you want them to know about you?
Yeah. It's funny, because I used to have all these goals coming into ministry, and really I've boiled it down to a couple. If people can know that I love Jesus with all my heart, mind, and soul, I want to be more like him, and they're seeing me grow in that. That I am the husband to Vanessa Oliveira Borges Turpin, and I'm madly in love with her, and she's my best friend. And man, it's just an honor to have her as my wife, my confidant. Man, she makes me so much better. I'm the father of Wilder Roman Turpin and Ayla Dawn Borges Turpin, and man, I just love being a father and being a husband and being a follower of Jesus. Those are the most important things. If we can get into the office and silly talk and all those things, but if you walk away talking with me, I hope that those are the things that you hear.
Yeah, that's so good. All right, one final concluding question that's just maybe more for fun than anything else. But what is one thing most people don't know about you that might surprise them about you?
I feel like I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I've been in so many environments and I have to do so many things through being in the church and being kind of a chameleonaire. I feel like I could honestly fit in any environment, anywhere. But I don't know. I don't feel like you could drop me somewhere and I wouldn't be able to connect or understand something with it. So I don't know if that would surprise anyone, but
you do connect with people better than almost anybody I know. You do an amazing job. That's what makes you great as a connection pastor, in part. And so I love that about you. You also, just for the record, you mentioned being on the worship team. You do play drums, so sometimes you're hidden back there. People don't necessarily see it. And you play guitar. I haven't heard you play in a while, but you do play guitar and stuff like that.
Play for Ayla, and right now I play my son Wilder, Simple Man by Leonard Skinner all the time, because that's the type of man I want him to be.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, I hope you guys have enjoyed this today. I hope you have enjoyed getting to know Pastor Jonny a little bit better. If you haven't already done this, make sure that you like and subscribe to the show. We always want to be able to get this content out to as many people as possible, and that helps. Also, leave comments. I know I will see them. Pastor Jonny will probably see them as well. So if you have questions or comments, we would love to be able to see those as well. And then if there's somebody you need to share this with, maybe it's one of his childhood friends or whatever, and you just want to catch up, I think that's a beautiful thing too. So make sure you share it. But we look forward to seeing you again next week on Creating the Future. God bless you.